noun, preposition, phrase. So there is no distinction between these elements in terms of the hierarchy. In terms of the hierarchy, all of them are sisters. However, using one replacement test, we can say that one in number three replaces only book of poems with the book cover. So since book of poems with the book cover alone can be replaced by one, it means that it forms a constituent. Since it forms a constituent, it must be branched from one node. So there is no node that includes only and only because the book of poems with the book cover, of course, it is branched from one mother, which is the noun phrase. But we must exclude the others. Okay, we must exclude the big. We need a node that includes only book of poems at the book cover. Only book, the noun, and the first PP and the second PP. There is no node. So to solve this problem, X bar theory, okay, proposes this solution. Okay, look at N2, N bar 2. So it includes only book of poems with the blue cover. Okay, again, the second example of one replacement shows that we still have further smaller constituents. I bought the big book of poems with the blue cover, not the small one with the red cover. So here we said that one here first, the small excludes, and we added with the red cover, which excludes with one replaces only book of poems, which means in addition to the node that includes book of poems with the blue cover, we need another in bar that includes only book of poems, because since it can be replaced alone, which means we must have a node. Okay, we must have a node that includes only book of poems. Okay, and this is n bar 3 book of poems. Okay, again we said we may target the big constituent. We may say, for example, I bought the big book of poems at the blue cover, not that one, not that one. So here that excludes. Okay, let's replace this the to better understand one replacement here. So let's say I bought this book of poems with the blue cover, not that one. So here that excludes this, which means one replaces big book of poems with the blue cover. So again, we need a node that includes big book of poems with the blue cover, because one that excludes this. Or okay, here this is node n bar 1, big book of poems at the blue cover, because when we say that, okay, I bought this book, not that one book, for example, because that excludes this. So the same thing here. So these are the main arguments of X-bar theory, okay, to prove that there exists an intermediate category. And last time we said, when we say XP, it's similar to X double bar, okay? And when we say X, it's similar to X zero bar. So XP refers to the phrase, X zero bar refers to the lexical categories, and something which is in between, because these elements that are replaced here, so as we said, one here does not replace the phrase, because the phrase is the whole NP, the big book of poems at the blue cover, and does not replace other phrases. For example, the adjective phrase does not replace only big, the adjective phrase does not replace only the first PP, the preposition phrase, does not replace the second preposition phrase with the blue cover. So one in these examples does not replace the phrases and does not replace the XP, the phrases. Okay? XP refers to the phrases and does not replace the lexical categories, does not replace the determiner, does not replace the noun alone book. So we conclude that one does not replace the phrasal categories and does not replace the lexical categories. It replaces something in between. So if it does not replace the XP, the phrase XP or X double bar, and does not replace X zero bar, which is the lexical category, so it replaces something in between, we give it 1 bar. Why? Because this is an intermediate category, which is between the phrasal category, which has 2 bars, and the lexical category, which has 0 bar. So it is something in between, so we give it 1 bar. So this is how the idea of X-bar theory emerges. Fine, now we continue where we stopped last time. Here, generalizing the rules X-bar schema. So we showed that there exists an intermediate category in verb phrases, okay, adjective phrases, adverb phrases, preposition phrases. So we used mainly 2 arguments, okay? We used conjunction. So we said last time, if you don't use the rule of conjunction X-bar, conjunct, X-bar, you cannot generate, okay, a phrase or a sentence, okay, where 2 elements, phrases or clauses are conjoined together, okay? And we use also the argument of so replacement. And we gave the example of I eat beans with forks and my brother does so with spoon. So does so, okay, does not replace the whole VP. So we used so replacement, do so, or does so, or did so replacement, and we used conjunctions. Okay. So this is what we talked about last time. Now we continue generalizing the rules of X-bar theory. So a brief definition of the head. So as you know, the head is the most, okay, obligatory element in a phrase. Okay, as you know, the head is that element that gives its name to the phrase. If the head is a noun phrase, is a noun, then that words is named a noun. If the head of a certain phrase is a verb, that group of words is named a verb phrase. However, we'll see better definitions, okay, or better characteristics, okay, more interesting characteristics of the concept of the head. The head is the only obligatory category in XP in a phrase, okay? Remember what we said a long time ago. All phrasal categories are optional in a phrase, but lexical category is obligatory. Okay, this is the reason why in the second session, if you still remember, enclosed noun phrase in a noun phrase, only the noun which is lexical category and it's obligatory. Okay, all other elements must be phrasal and optional, if you still remember this. Okay. In an adjective phrase, for example, the only obligatory element is the adjective, and it's the only one which is lexical, okay, which means the other elements must be phrasal and must be optional. Obligatory category in XP phrase is the head, okay? There must be one and only one head in every phrase, okay? And the head must be lexical. It mustn't be a phrase. So the only lexical category in XP means a phrase. The only lexical category in an XP while other categories. The only lexical category in XP which is obligatory. Okay? All other categories, modifiers, are optional and phrasal. So the head gives its syntactic category to the whole phrase. Yeah, if the head is a noun, then we call that group of words a noun phrase. Okay, now some characteristics of the phrase. So these are some characteristics, okay, of the head. Now what about the phrase? So the phrase, it must have one and only one head. Okay, if phrase heads or more, so we'll talk about this kind of phrase or expansion, which is lexical. In a phrase, in an XP means in a phrase, the head is lexical and obligatory, while modifiers are phrasal and optional. Its distribution must be based on endocentricity. This is a very interesting point. Endocentricity, which means the expansion of the head is based on, the expansion of the phrase is based on the head. The expansion of the phrase is based on the head. Let me explain this point. Endocentric versus exocentric. I think we have it here, yeah. So just wait. We have it in an independent slide. We'll talk about it. Right, so these are the rules we have come up with, okay? So we said moving from the noun phrase, from the mother to the head, which is noun, to the head. So you must have, okay, only one bar. So in bar, in bar, in bar, in bar, in bar. So moving from the INP, from the phrase, okay, moving from the phrase, moving from the phrase to the head, you must have only, okay, bars, only bars, in bar or whatever. So in bar, you may have in bar determiner. So instead of saying, you may have the noun and determiner, the noun and adjective phrase, the noun and adjective phrase and preposition phrase. So we replace that noun with in bar, okay? So in bar determiner, in bar adjective phrase, in bar preposition phrase, and finally in noun and preposition phrase. So you may say, why do we have preposition phrase here, which is next to in bar, and preposition phrase here, which is next to in zero bar? There is no bar here. So remember, and this is something very interesting in X bar theory. Now, this is to explain the difference in terms of the function of the two preposition phrases. This preposition phrase refers to of poems, for example, of poems. It is complement. So complement. So it's always next to the head. It's always next to zero bar. Okay, and this first preposition phrase is an adjunct. Okay, so it is sister to a bar, one bar, and dominated by one bar, but the complement is sister to zero bar in zero bar, dominated by one bar. Okay, so the only difference, as we will see, between the complement and the adjunct, the complement is sister to zero bar, x zero bar, dominated by one bar. The adjunct is sister to one bar and dominated by one bar. So both of them are dominated by one. Dominated means that their mother, okay, the mother is n bar, okay, but the complement is sister to zero bar, and the adjunct is sister to one bar. So you will understand this because this is the main concern of next section. Okay, we'll talk only about complements and adjuncts. Okay, now the verb phrase is the same thing again. Same from the verb phrase to the verb, which is the head. You must have only bars: v bar, v bar, v bar, v bar, preposition, etc. So notice that everything that you have, any elements, any phrases, okay, must be optional between parentheses and must be phrasal. Adverb phrase, not adverb. Preposition phrase, not preposition. Noun phrase, not noun. Because here we are talking about the verb phrase, okay, which is only the verb which must be lexical. All other elements are, they have two characteristics. First are phrasal. You don't find preposition or adverb, you find preposition phrase, adverb phrase, etc. So they are phrasal. The second property, they are optional. They must be between parentheses. Okay, so one more remark here is that look at the NP here. The NP. The NP is sister to V, not V bar. Look, the preposition phrase is sister to V bar. The adverb phrase is sister to V bar. Why? And the NP is sister to 0 bar. Why? Because the NP is the complement. So this is always the rule of the complement. Okay, so we find it with nouns and prepositions, because also find CP complementizer phrase, because sometimes a complementizer phrase can be a complement of the noun. For example, the man that I talked to you about, of that CP that functions as a complement of the noun. Okay, so this is as an example. It's not a general rule of the NP, all the realizations or manifestations of the NP. Okay, just as an example. Okay, so this is always the place of the complement. If we take the preposition phrase, will be the place of the NP, because the NP is a complement of the preposition phrase. If we take also the adverb phrase, so the adverb phrase, as we said, it's another adverb phrase as its modifier, okay? And it may take preposition phrase as a complement, preposition phrase as a complement. Because the preposition phrase is sister to adverb 0 bar. There is no bar here, which means that this is very interesting, because the adverb phrase here and the adverb phrase, it is next to adverb bar. You can never find an adverb phrase functioning as a adverb. Okay, but we find the preposition phrase here next to adverb 0 bar. It means that you may find the preposition phrase functioning as the complement of the adverb. Okay, the same thing here in the noun phrase. PP next to in bar, and we have another PP next to 0 bar, which means you may find a preposition phrase which functions as an adjunct next to in bar, and you may find a preposition phrase which functions as a complement and its sister to bar. In the verb phrase, again, you can never find the preposition phrase or the adverb phrase functioning as, complement. So the adverb phrase and the preposition phrase, they're always next to bar, V bar. But the NP, the verb takes the NP as its complement most of the time. We're talking about transitive verbs. They take the NP as the complement. So it's sister to V 0 bar. Adjective phrase, again. Adjective phrase, again, moving from the adjective phrase to the head adjective, you must have only bar, adjective bar, adjective bar, adjective bar, adjective. Now, this has a meaning, which means that in all, we must find the adjective because it's the head. Okay? And remember, here with one bar, we have the adverb phrase, which means that the adjective can be pre-modified by another adverb phrase, but it's optional. Okay, and the adverb phrase is next to adjective bar, which means that the adverb phrase can never be a complement of the adjective. Okay, so it's always an adjunct and it's optional. But the adjective phrase may take the preposition phrase as its complement. Please remember this. This is very interesting. Why? If you know these rules, it means when you are going to draw the tree, there is a difference between the complement and the adjunct. And you will find this difficulty in the exam. You will ask yourself, is this a complement or an adjunct? Because if you don't know the answer, so the tree will be incorrect. Because there is, as we will see in the next section, there is one rule for the adjunct and there is a rule for the complement. So you have to know this. So the verb takes the NP as its complement. The noun may take complement. Okay, here we're saying that the adverb can never take another adverb phrase as its complement, but it may take the preposition phrase as its complement. Here again, the adjective phrase, the adverb phrase is never a complement of the adjective because it's always sister to one bar, but it may take the preposition phrase as its complement. Okay, the preposition phrase or sometimes non-finite clause. For example, it's difficult to do it. So to do it completes the meaning of difficult. Okay? It's difficult to do it. Okay, so here, preposition phrase, as I said, so the preposition phrase may take another preposition phrase. You may have two preposition phrases. Okay, for example, when we say, you may have preposition is the head modified by another preposition phrase. Okay, you may have, because prepositions co-occur. Okay, right. So here you may have another adverb phrase modifying the preposition phrase. Okay, what is important here is that adverb phrases and preposition phrases are just adjuncts, okay, to the preposition. So as you can see here, the preposition can take only the NP as its complement. Okay, it takes the NP as its complement. Now, before moving to the difference between the complement and the adjunct, now let's explain the difference between endocentricity and exocentricity. Okay, consider the following rules. Now, what is wrong with these rules? First, the NP, you may have it in the exam. Okay, so you may have something like this. Okay, and you'll be asked explain why this generation of the sentence is incorrect. Is this NP? So this is a noun phrase. So we must have a noun here. On the right, we must have a noun because we're talking about noun phrase, but what we find the verb which is lexical category, which means that it is the verb which is the head of the NP. It's impossible. The second problem is that the adjective phrase is not between parentheses, which means it must be optional. So you see here, focus on the first problem. So the NP, the noun phrase, must have a noun as its head, which is lexical category, not the verb. So this means that the expansion of this phrase the expansion of the phrase is not based on the notion of the head, because here we have a noun phrase. We don't find the noun here as its head, which and this phrase we expand it based on the head. Okay, so this means that this is exocentric. This is the meaning of exocentricity. Exocentricity when the expansion of the head is not based on, when the expansion of the phrase is not based on the head. And this is one example. One example. But to make it endocentric, we must have INP, noun, noun here, and preceded by the adjective phrase. Okay, noun here, and the one that we, the correct one. If it's correct, it means it's endocentric. Another example, this is also exocentric because we have V bar, adverb V bar. So first, the verb can never take the adverb as its complement. Okay, the adverb must be closer to V bar first. It must be closer to V bar, not to V0 bar. Remember this, okay? The verb can never take the adverb as its complement. So the adverb is never sister to V0 bar. But the main problem here, is there are two lexical. There are two. So we have adverb, not adverb phrase, and we have verb. Two lexical categories, both of them have the ability or the possibility to head the phrase. Okay, so the adverb phrase, and we call it adverb phrase, or the verb can be the head. So whenever there are two lexical categories, so you don't know which one is the head of the other. So again, this expansion of this phrase is not based on the notion of the head, so it is exocentric. Okay? So the requirement that phrases are headed is called endocentricity. The only obligatory element in a phrase is the head. Okay? So is it clear? Any question about endocentricity and exocentricity? If you have correct generalization, for example, if we have the INP gives us a noun, adjective phrase, noun, etc., the rules that we explained before, then it's endocentric. The correct generalizations are all endocentric. Exocentric when you have the phrase here, for example, phrase, but you don't. You may find it. Suppose that we find the verb here and the noun here. Again, it's not endocentric, it's exocentric, because we have verb, we have noun, we have two lexical categories. Okay, so each one can head the phrase. You may have something similar to this in the exam.
Yes,
okay, in which you explain why this is. Is there any?
It's clear.
Yes,
So,
Mr. Yasir?
so in the endocentric, they present you with the phrase, but after the head of while in the exocentric, they present you with a phrase bar, but a phrase bar, but the head is there, but the phrase isn't.
Well, let's take further examples. So this is not about coming up with rules. Now, the idea is very simple. So suppose, think of this one. So here we have the INP and we have the VP. Is this correct? Is this rule correct? A sentence or TP? A sentence, or we can replace it with TP. Is this correct? Is it endocentric or exocentric? Is it endocentric or exocentric?
It's in the center.
No, this is exocentric. It's not correct indeed.
Yeah.
Why? Of course, we know that a sentence contains a noun phrase and a verb phrase. However, the problem here, sorry. However, the problem here is that we have the sentence here. We have the TP. Okay, it could be the sentence or it could be the TP. Okay, the same thing. Okay, the TP, the NP, and the VP. So we need here T, we must have T here. There is no T here, okay? And here we must have something like, you may call it S, which means, remember what we said about the NP, for example. We said the NP, you must have noun here. The VP, you must have verb here. The preposition phrase, you must have preposition phrase here, etc. Which means that if you have the NP, the head noun must be there and must be lexical, and all other categories must be phrasal. But look at this. So we start with S, but there is nothing in the NP or the VP that shows that one is the head of S. So the problem here is that the sentence S has no head, has no head. The TP again, so we start with the TP. So we end up with the NP and the VP. So if you want to understand it, say, well, if we start with the NP, which means we have the noun here, we have the noun, then we should find the noun as a lexical category. If we have the VP, so we have the verb, we should find the verb as the only one which is lexical category. So here again, when we have TP, there is no T here, which is lexical category, okay? Which means that this expansion of the phrase is not endocentric. It is exocentric, okay? Because the TP has no head, okay? The VP indeed, so here, the VP has its own head, which is the verb, and the NP has its own head, which is the noun. So which one is the head of the TP? No one. So the TP has no head. Okay. But look at the others. For example, look at the other rules. For example, the adjective phrase. So consists of, let's say, the adverb phrase. So the adjective is the head of the adjective phrase, and the adverb phrase has its own head, which is, okay, the adverb. Okay, so this one has its own head, which is the adverb. Okay, and this is the head of this one. Okay, that's why if you must have adjective as the lexical category. If you have NP, you must have noun as the lexical category, because that lexical category is the head of the phrase. Okay, so again, if we have something like this, adjective phrase, and we have here adverb. So again, this is not endocentric, because both of them have the possibility to head the phrase. So this can be the head, this can be the head. Okay, why? Because both of them are lexical categories. Both of them have the possibility to be the head of the phrase. The problem is that, or to solve this problem, one of them must be phrasal. So if you correct this in this way, if you correct it in this way, okay, adverb phrase, adjective, the adjective here, or in this way, adverb phrase, adverb, adjective phrase. This means that this is the head of this one. This is adjective phrase. And this means that the adjective here, this is the head of this phrase. So, again here, so this is number 1, this is number 2, and this is number 3. So, as we said, number 1 is incorrect, okay? Because the expansion of the phrase is exocentric. It's not based on the head. How? Because the phrase, adjective phrase, has two heads, okay? The adverb phrase can be the head and the adjective can be the head. So the problem here that there are two categories. And remember the definition of the phrase. The phrase must consist and only one head, only one lexical category. Okay, so it's incorrect. Number 2, adjective phrase consists of adverb phrase and the adjective, because we have only one lexical category, which is the adjective, and it's the head of the phrase, the adjective phrase. That's fine. And adverb phrase is it should be, we just need to add that it's optional, okay? It's optional here. Now look at number 3, adjective phrase. Adjective phrase, we have adverb phrase is lexical category, and we have adjective phrase. Now, it's correct in one part. How? Because this phrase has only one lexical category, but this lexical category is has the wrong syntactic category. So adjective phrase requires the adjective which is lexical, not the adverb which is lexical. Okay? So again, it's incorrect because the expansion is exocentric. It's not based on the head. Okay? We start with the adjective phrase. We end up with a different category, lexical category. We start with the adjective phrase. We end up having an adverb as the head. Okay, is there any question? So in the exam you may have one example of what we are talking about now, where you need to explain it, whether it's endocentric or exocentric, and explain why. Any question?
No, Professor.
Professor,
Yes.
what lexical category can be the head of TP, for instance?
T. It should be T. Okay. We'll see this in chapter 7. Chapter 7 or chapter 8? T. Okay. There are many other examples, by the way.
Thank you.
So,
The example is the example of CP. The example of CP. Okay. Further example is the CP. Okay. So where should we write it? Here. Okay. So CP.
so
The rule of the CP. Okay. We said complementizer, which is okay, and we have here. Okay. We said TP. Okay. TP, we said we have the NP, we have the VP. So we have shown that there is a problem here, because normally we should have T here. We should have T, which is the head. We'll see the same problem here with the CP. The same problem with the CP, because we said already that the complementizer is optional. But indeed, the complementizer C, which is optional there, between parentheses, the head, it's the one that has the possibility to head the CP. So it shouldn't be optional. So we will see an example of this. Yes, please, Mr. Yasir.
in the example, you said both the adverb and the adjective can be the head of the adjective phrase because they are both lexical categories. Does that count to any other example? So can any lexical category be the head? please?
Yeah, it applies to all other examples. Okay, so this is just an example. Okay, you may have, for example, preposition phrase that consists of the preposition and the noun. So again, this is exocentric because two heads. The same thing, for example, in a verb phrase. So the verb phrase consists of the verb and the noun. The same thing again, it's exocentric. Okay, which means if you have a preposition phrase, only the preposition which should be lexical. If you have a verb phrase, only the verb that should be lexical. Okay, if you have an adjective phrase, only the adjective that should be lexical, etc., etc. Okay, so the example in number one, that was just an example, and you need to generalize the rule. Is it clear?
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
may I ask you?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
It's the first session. So please, may I ask you about why we put the brackets? For example, we have PP, we put the brackets, please.
So you are saying it. Yes, you are saying it. You are saying this is the first question. So in syntax and linguistics in general, especially pure linguistics, syntax and phonology, if you miss one session, then I advise you not to attend again because you will not understand. Okay, I'm not saying this to discourage you, but I'm saying this because I want you to attend. Okay, so the bracket, so it means it's optional. Okay, it means it's optional. Okay, and this is a general rule in linguistics, in phonology, morphology, syntax, etc. Anything which is between parentheses is optional. Okay, so which means that if we add here optional, now it's correct. Okay, if we add the NP, it's correct. Now it's no longer exocentric because the preposition phrase requires the preposition which is obligatory and the NP, which is both. Please remember these two characteristics of the phrasal categories. It must be a phrase, it must be NP or whatever, and it must be optional between parentheses. So remember these two characteristics. You may okay. You may have direct questions in the exam. For example, what are the characteristics of the phrasal categories, or what are the characteristics of the head? So the characteristics of the phrasal or the phrases, okay, are so syntactically. So phrases within X-bar theory. The phrase must consist of one lexical category and optional phrasal categories. So two categories of the phrases. So it must be, so they must be in a phrase. Okay, a phrase must, sorry, the main characteristics of the phrase. Okay, the phrase must consist of one lexical category which is optional, and one lexical category which is obligatory, and optional phrasal categories. So first, the other elements are phrasal. Second, they are optional, between parentheses. Okay. So we move on.
Yes.
Professor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Could you please repeat the explanation of example 3? Why is it exocentric?
Example 3.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So here we have the adjective phrase, right? Not adverb. This is adjective phrase. This is adjective phrase. Okay. So we have adverb and adjective phrase. So the problem is very easy, very clear here to account for. So first we have the adjective phrase. Normally we expect the adjective to be the head, not the adverb. So we start with an adjective phrase. We end up with the adverb as the head. Okay? It should be. It
It's
should be.
clear. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be the adjective, which is lexical category, not the adverb, because we are talking about an adjective phrase. Okay?
So it must be the adjective phrase which is the head, not the adverb.
Not adjective phrase, adjective, yeah.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Adjective, okay? The
Professor,
adjective that should be the head. This one, not. Yes, Mr. Norte?
Professor, you said that there is some characteristic of the verb phrase. I recall just one. You said that it must contain one
Uh-huh.
one lexical category and
No, this is not.
other
This is not.
optional.
This is not peculiar to the phrase.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
it
phrase.
is. It's It's a characteristic of all phrases. All
Yes.
phrases. We talked about it here, but let's explain it again.
Thank you.
Yes, this one. Characteristic. Right? It must have one head, which is, and the head is lexical and obligatory, while modifiers are phrasal and optional. Okay, so the modifiers, this part sentence, modifiers. The modifiers are the elements that precede or follow the head. Okay, head are phrasal and optional. Okay,
Thank you.
are phrasal and optional. Okay, for example, in a verb phrase, you must find only the verb which is lexical. All other elements must be phrasal, which means if you have preposition, it must be preposition phrase. Okay, if you have noun, it must be noun phrase, and they must be between parentheses, which means optional. Okay. Of course, we know that in transitive verbs, the noun is the NP is not optional. The NP is not optional. Okay. For example, I met him yesterday. So we cannot simply say I met and full stop, which means I was expecting this question from you, which means that in the verb must take an NP as its complement. So the NP is not optional. So why should we put it between parentheses? This is because this is the general rule. We are considering intransitive verbs, which means that in English, the verb does not always require an NP as its complement. And this is the case of intransitive verbs. So since we have examples of verbs which are intransitive verbs, examples require a complement, which means that the complement, the NP, is not always obligatory in English. Okay? So the reason why the NP is between parentheses in English, VPs, is the fact that intransitive verbs do not require an object. Okay? Now, as we said last time, the XP, when we talked about the XP, etc. So the XP stands for the noun phrase, preposition phrase, etc. Okay? When I say XP, is that X can replace the noun, can replace the verb, can replace adjective, adverb, and preposition, and represents all categories. Okay? And the P means the phrase. As I said last time, we can say XP, the P, etc., or we can answer, please.
X double bar.
X double bar. Okay, X double bar. So you may write the in P or in double bar. They are the same. They are the same. You may write adjective double bar. Okay, they are the same. For example, if you have a noun phrase and I ask you in the exam to draw the tree, so you may start with a noun double bar, or you may start with NP. They're the same. Okay? And X double bar, as we said, it's something in between. So X bar means in bar, V bar, adjective bar, adverb bar, and P bar. Okay. X bar means if you are talking about the in P, so you have in bar. If you are talking about the VP, you have V bar, adjective phrase, adjective bar, etc. And X0 bar stands for noun, verb, adjective, adverb, and preposition. Okay.
Lexical category.
Yeah, lexical category. And so the basal category, X is the lexical category, and X bar is the intermediate category, something in between 2 bars and 0 bar. So indeed, all the rules we have seen can be combined into only 3 rules. Okay, we'll simplify things. This is the rule of the head. As we said last time, the head, the preposition phrase is the head of the NP next to N0 bar. NP in the noun, for example, book of poems. So the noun may take the preposition phrase as its complement. As its complement. Adjective may take the preposition as its complement. Adverb may take the preposition as its complement. Preposition may take the NP as its complement. So this is the highlighted syntactic categories are the heads. So the noun may take the PP as its complement. So this is the first rule, which means that the head is next to X0 bar. The head is next to X0 bar, which means in a noun phrase, the head must be next to the noun. In a verb phrase, the head must be the complement must be next to the. In an adjective phrase, the complement must be sister to, or sister to means closer to, or sister to adjective. In an adverb phrase, the preposition phrase, which is complement, must be sister to the adverb 0 bar. The NP, which is the complement in a preposition phrase, must be sister to P 0 bar. Just to give you an example, okay, to understand what we are talking about. For example, if you're talking about a preposition phrase, and we said, so preposition phrase, so remember what we said. So we said, we will correct this, okay? I'm not going to use the bar here. You can use it, this one. We'll correct it. So the preposition phrase, for example, I said the NP for the time being, the NP must be sister to this P. Okay, they must be sister here. Okay, must be sisters. This is the point we are talking about. We're talking about the complement. For example, in the VP, so we must have here the verb and here the NP, which means that the NP must be sister to the verb, not to the V bar. We will modify this. Of course, it must be branched from V bar. But let's not talk about 2 ideas at the same time, just one, which means for the time being, the complement is sister to the lexical category. Okay, so I'm explaining these points. So adjective phrase may take the preposition phrase as its complement. Okay, so again, the adjective phrase may consist of the preposition phrase. The point is that this preposition phrase is sister to the adjective 0 bar, not to adjective 1 bar. Okay, so this is the point. As simple as this. It means that lexical complements are sisters to lexical category. Okay, so we may generate the rule. Okay, we'll revise it. We may say that this is the head. The head, we call it, okay, WP, for example. Okay. Okay. To X 0 bar dominated by 1 bar. Okay. Just to 0 bar. All of them they had here. All of them. Okay. Just to. Okay. Sister to 0 bar and dominated by 1 bar. So if we consider, for example, preposition phrase, we said it takes the NP as its complement. So here, preposition, E bar, preposition, the NP. So the NP is the head of the preposition. We talks about the adjective phrase. Adjective 1 bar, adjective, preposition phrase. So again, it's the head here. We talks about the case of the VP. Okay. The VP. So remember, you can start with the VP or V double bar. Okay. Then V1 bar, then the verb, then the NP. NP is complement. So here we're talking about the rules of the complements. Okay. So, sorry. So this is the meaning here. The head, the preposition, the noun here, the complement, the PP must be closer, sister to noun, lexical category, and dominated by in bar. The NP must be sister to V 0 bar, dominated by V1 bar. This is what we have here. Okay, the NP must be sister to V 0 bar, dominated by V bar, which means for the time being, okay, this is incorrect. Okay, the NP. This is incorrect. Okay, it is applicable to all other rules. This is incorrect. This is incorrect as well. Adjective, phrase, etc. This is again incorrect. Why? Why? Because the complement must not be branched from the phrase. I repeat, the complement must not be branched from the phrase. So in the VP, the NP, the VP. In the preposition phrase, the NP must not be branched from the PP. Okay, in the adjective phrase, the PP must not be branched from the adjective phrase. So to generalize the rule, the head, the complement, either to X 0 bar, its mother is X1. Repeat. The head, the complement, sister to X 0 bar, the lexical category, dominated by 1 bar. Okay, so if you branch the NP from the VP, it's incorrect, etc. Okay, so we'll have further examples. Okay, rule of the head and its complement. So now, now we turn to the recursive in bar, A bar, V bar, B bar, etc. So in a noun phrase, you can have in bar, adjective phrase, etc. If you still remember the first example, so the big book of poems at the blue cover. So we have in big book of poems at the blue cover. We have in bar 2, it targets book of poems at the blue cover. We have in bar 3, which targets book of poems. So we have a number of in bar 1, in bar 2, in bar 3, etc. Why? Because adjunct as possible. But at the maximum, you have one complement or two complements in the case of ditransitive verbs. This is the main cursive. So bar, the rule of bar is repeated over and over because you can have as many adjuncts as possible. For example, I talked to a man yesterday at school at 9 o'clock, etc., etc. So you can add as many adjuncts as possible. So yesterday is an adjunct. At school is an adjunct. At night, my friends is an adjunct, etc., etc. This is the reason why the rule of n bar or a bar or etc., which means x bar, is repeated over and over. So we don't say is repeated over and over, we say it's recursive. Recursive, okay? Which means if you have, for example, big book, so big book, we're going to have one n bar because we have one adjunct. If we have, for example, big book on a big book in the library, so we'll have two n bars because we have two adjuncts, big and in the library. If we have a sentence like or a phrase like the big book with the blue cover from Germany, etc., etc. So we'll have here three n bars because we have three adjuncts. Okay, the meaning of recursive. So n bar here is repeated here, here. V bar is repeated, adjective is repeated, etc. So just remember this idea of recursivity. The rule of adjunct is repeated, which means the rule of bar is repeated, x bar. So again, we can condense these rules into a single rule. So this is the rule of the adjunct, okay? As I said, the adjunct is always, so let's call the adjunct Z or Z, P, okay? So Z and then P, okay? But the other one, these are, by the way, these are just letters, okay? We use them just to say that, just to decode them. This is the rule of the adjunct, okay? And the other one, the previous one, is the rule of the complement. So what is the difference between the adjunct and the complement? So here, the adjunct is sister to one bar, dominated by one bar. You may have the adjunct before or after, it depends. For example, the big book. So here, the adjunct, the adjective, before the head. Or book of poems with the blue cover. So with the blue cover is an adjunct. It comes, have two possibilities, okay? Either, okay, the adjunct before or after. Here, look at the difference here. Look at the rule of the complement or the head. It is sister to this X, 0 bar. It is sister to this. This is the only difference, okay? But here, the adjunct is sister to X bar, okay? Don't worry, we'll work on many examples. Let's consider the rules that introduce the topmost layer of structure. This is the rule of the specifier. So the specifier, okay, determiner, the verb, adjective, phrase, adjective. So this is, which means that this is the first node that we get from the mother. When we have the phrase, the NP, we get noun phrase. When we have VP, we get V bar. When we have adjective phrase, we give adjective bar. So this is very interesting. Why? From now on, when you draw any trait, when you start with the phrase, then immediately you must have one bar. You must have one bar. Please remember this. Whenever you start with any phrase, the first node must be one bar. It is impossible to branch from the NP, just noun, just the lexical category. You cannot move from the mother, from the phrase to the lexical category. You must move through the X bar, the bar, okay? In P in bar, then you can move to N. V bar, VP, V bar, then you can move to the V, etc. Please do not make this mistake. We don't move directly from the VP to the verb. We don't move directly from the preposition phrase to the preposition. So forget about what we did 2 weeks. Okay, forget about the flat structure. Okay. So again, this is the rule of the, we'll call it specifier. We'll come back to this point, okay? Here in the complements and the adjuncts. The complements of the adjunct. Now, let me just summarize this, okay? So I said, okay, I said that you can never, whenever you have the XP, X bar here, okay? You can't move directly to X, 0 bar. And this is the rule, and you can apply it to any category. For example, if you have the NP, to N bar first. If you have the VP, you move to V bar first. If you have PP, you move to P bar first, etc. So if you move direct to the lexical category, or from PP to P, or from VP to verb, it's incorrect. Okay? And I said, this is the rule. This is incorrect. If you move directly from the NP to the noun, this is incorrect. Okay, these are correct. Okay. I said the rule of the adjunct. Okay, the adjunct should be like this. Of course, more detailed. So here we said, okay, we gave it the example of we gave it the letter Z. Okay, P here. This is for the adjunct, and we gave the rule, or we said you may have it after. Okay, or we may have the adjunct after or before. Okay, so what is interesting here is that the adjunct is always, yes, okay, is always sister. This is the rule of the adjunct. It's always sister to X bar dominated by X bar. Remember this, please. Okay, and we talked about the rule of the complement X bar X. Okay, or in some languages, the head comes first. The head comes first, so we have to do it like this. Okay. Okay, so in some languages the head comes first, in other languages it comes after. Okay, right, so this is what we talked about. So the rule of the adjunct, the rule of the complement, and avoid these mistakes. Okay, whenever you start with the phrase, you have to move to the bar, okay, 1 bar, before moving to the lexical categories. And this is what we will see in the adjuncts. Okay. So the book of poems, difference between adjunct and complement. Okay, the book of poems with the glossy cover, as we said, so it is clear that the first preposition phrase functions as a complement to the noun. The second preposition is simply an adjunct. It's not obligatory. It's not necessary. Okay, so we have to show this in the tree. So remember, please, step by step. So first, I said from the NP, from the phrase, you must have the bar first. Don't move to the lexical category. Okay? You must have the bar first. So the first preposition phrase, look at preposition P1. Now, let me talk about the first rule. I said, please remember this. I said, you always branch one bar. Okay? From the phrase, you always branch one bar. Okay? It's Asiyah, please mute your mic. This is something that you needn't be reminded of. I said from the phrase, you always branch one bar. Now, look at the NP. We have in bar. Look at the first PP. We have P bar. Look at the second PP. We have P bar, etc. So this, from now on, we are going to branch from the NP in bar, X bar. P in bar. If it is the PP, P bar. If it is the VP, V bar, etc. So remember the rule of the complement. Our poems is a complement. So it is branched from N bar and sister to N0 bar. This is always the rule of the complement. The complement must be branched from X bar and sister to X0 bar. And look at the second one. The PP2 functions as an adjunct, not as a complement. So it is sister to in bar dominated by in bar. Okay? So it is sister to X bar dominated by X bar. The complement is sister to X0 bar. This is the difference. The complement is always next to the head, to the lexical to 0 bar, X0 bar, and dominated by X bar. Is it clear? This is
Yes, Professor.
This is the complement, and
Yes,
this is the
Professor.
adjunct. Okay. So PP used by this rule, which is the rule of the complement. The complement is sister to X0 bar dominated by X bar. And the PP2 is introduced by the rule of the adjunct. Okay? The adjunct is sister to X0 bar, X bar dominated by X bar. Therefore, this is the adjunct rule. Okay? The adjunct is sister to 0 bar, 1 bar dominated by 1 bar. We may have the adjunct first, then X bar, okay, second. The complement rule, the complement is sister to 0 bar dominated by 1 bar. This is like the summary, if you want. The complement is always, these are just letters given to the complement and to the adjunct, just to distinguish between them. They are arbitrary. Okay, you can call it whatever. If you want to call the complement MP, no problem. Okay, so it is always sister to X0 bar dominated by X1 bar. The adjunct is always sister to X bar dominated by X bar. And from the phrase, we always branch first 1 bar. This tree summarizes everything. Is it clear? Is it clear? Any questions?
Yes,
Professor,
Yes?
can
Yes.
we have more than two complement in one phrase?
We'll talk about this later on. Because this, you should have asked this question. You should have asked this question last time when I said that in X bar theory there must be only 2 branches, only 2 here, okay? 2 here, etc. You should have asked this question. Why? Because X bar theory says that we must have only 2 branches. But what about if a verb requires 2 complements, a ditransitive verb like give. And what about the conjunction? So these are some of the weaknesses of X-bar theory. That's why we need to move to extended X-bar theory in the upcoming chapter. You see? So it's like now you have mentioned one of the weaknesses of X-bar theory. So that's why we'll talk about it later on.
Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
complements and adjunct in NP. Okay, now we'll see just some examples of complements and adjunct. We need some practice. So this is the rule. This is the rule. We need some practice. So let's take an example of the NP. Okay. So this is preposition phrase. The book of poems, the book with a red cover. Now the difference, and this is something you must pay attention to, especially in the exam. You should ask yourself, which one is complement and which one is an adjunct, because they have different rules. Okay, the adjunct must be sister to 1 bar and the complement must be sister to X 0 bar. Okay, so this is the difference. Okay, pay attention to this. So of poems is complement, is a complement, so it is sister to X 0 bar dominated by X bar. This is the rule. So it is sister to N 0 bar dominated by N1 bar. E is an adjunct. So we must add another N bar here. Okay. So it is sister to N bar dominated by N bar. Remember the rule, the adjunct must be sister to 1 bar dominated by 1 bar. So you see now the difference between the adjunct and the complement. In the adjunct, you must add a bar because it must be sister to 1 bar dominated by 1 bar. The complement is sister to 0 bar dominated by 1 bar. Is it clear now? This is an example that explains the rule of the adjunct and the complement. Is it?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, yes,
Professor,
yes.
why you draw triangle there and you didn't finish branching with the red cover or?
No, triangle is just okay. Our interest here is to explain the difference between the adjunct and the complement. Okay, but how can we draw the tree for with a red cover? Fine. Let's do it. Let's do some practice. Okay. So here we said with a red cover. So this is a preposition phrase. Okay, this is a preposition phrase. Remember, we always branch 1 bar from the phrase. A bar. Okay, we always branch a bar from the phrase. Fine. So preposition, which is with. Now remember, if you don't know this, if you have problems in grammar 3 of S3, so you may have some difficulty in deciding the syntactic category and the functions of certain words. Now, what is the function of the NP that comes after the preposition? It's complement. So it must be sister to 0 bar dominated by 1 bar. So if you have some problems with the functions and the categories, so sometimes you may not be able to draw the correct rule because complement and you think it's an adjunct, or maybe it's an adjunct and it's a complement. Then you need to remember what I said before. The verb takes the transitive and intransitive. The adjective may take the non-finite clause as its complement or the preposition as its complements. the NP takes the PP as its complement. If we are talking about of, a preposition that starts with of, the NP may take the clause, the CP, as its complement, the man that I told you about. The preposition takes the NP, always takes the NP as its complement. The adverb phrase, for example, does not take another adverb as its complement. The adjective never takes the adverb as its complement, etc. So you have to remember this, just not to make a mistake when you are drawing the tree. Maybe it's only an adjunct and you think that it's a complement. Okay, so here we know that the preposition takes the NP as its complement. So it must be, the NP must be sister to P0 bar, P1 bar. We replace that X0 bar and X bar by the category of the phrase we are talking about. So this is the complement, okay? The NP is the complement of the preposition. So it's sister to P0 bar, dominated by P1 bar, okay? The P with the blue cover. So remember, from the phrase, we have to generate one bar first. So this is always the case, okay? From the preposition P bar, in P, in bar. So we have the determiner with the blue cover. So here again, blue cover. Here, this is the adjective phrase, okay? Etc. The blue. Now here, what should we write? Is it N cover or N bar? What is it? Which one is correct? N or N bar?
N bar.
N bar.
N bar.
Why? Why?
In bar.
Why? Why? Because blue functions as an adjunct, not as a complement. Remember, please. Adjectives always function as an adjunct to the noun. So they are always sister to N bar and dominated by N bar. This is always the case. And remember the second point. Adverb phrases always take other adverb phrases as an adjunct, never as complements. Okay? Now let me test your understanding now. Can you please do it? Do it independently. Can you please generate trees for the following sentences or for the following phrases? So we have big, okay, big problem, okay, number one. Number two, okay, let's say family of John. Then the school. Okay. Okay. Then number four. The very old man. The very old man from Morocco. The very old man from Morocco. Then number five, very friendly. Number six, so okay, let's use two adverbs. Okay, very slowly. Okay, very slowly, very friendly, or so friendly, etc. What else? What else we need? Okay. In the school. Okay, preposition phrase. In the school. Please write them down, okay? In the school number 7. So we'll start with number 1, big problem. Shall we start? Now,
May I answer
let's do it.
this one?
Okay. Big problem. So
We have
go
the prepositional.
which one? Big problem?
No, I'm sorry. It's the noun phrase. I just
Okay, noun phrase or in double bar. Then remember what I said. Remember what I said. You have to have in bar.
You have
to make in bar.
In bar. It's from E or from in bar?
In bar.
In bar.
From the in bar.
Yes.
Okay, because big is an adjunct, so it must be sister to in bar, dominated by in bar. It's here, adjective 1 bar. Always move from the phrase to 1 bar to 0 bar, then then big here. So from the phrase to 1 bar to 0 bar. Okay, if it's not important, you can use the triangle. If you don't want to use the triangle, then adjective phrase, adjective 1 bar, adjective 0 bar. Okay, then here, problem.
Professor?
So a mistake, one of, please avoid these 2 mistakes. Let me explain one important remark. Please, this is not correct. This is not correct. And this is again not correct. Suppose n bar, okay? Again here, adjective phrase, noun. Okay, here we have big. And here we have problem. So this is also incorrect. Incorrect, and this one is incorrect. Why? So the first one is incorrect because you can never branch adjective phrases from the phrase. Please remember. Okay? The adjective phrase simply is an adjunct. So remember the rule. Since it is an adjunct, it must be sister to 1 bar, dominated by 1 bar. So here, in the first one, okay, in example 1 and example 2. So in example 1, adjective phrase which is an adjunct is sister to 1 bar, fine, but it is not dominated by 1 bar. So it's incorrect. In number 2, the adjective phrase is dominated by 1 bar, fine, but it is not sister to 1 bar. So it's incorrect. It's like, and this is the problem. It's like we are considering big as a complement because we give it the rule of the complement. Is it clear?
Yes.
Oh, so look at the correct one. Look at the adjective phrase. It is an adjunct. Fine. Remember the rule. It must be branched from 1 bar and sister to 1 bar. So here we're talking about the noun phrase. So adjective phrase must be sister to, and it is sister to 1 bar, n bar, dominated by n bar. It's fine. Any question? Yes, please.
No, sir.
Okay, now the second example, what is it?
Professor?
Yes?
Family of John.
Can we use triangle in the exam?
No. Okay, no. Because triangle sometimes is used by some students who don't know how to branch a certain phrase.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, now the second one, try to do it, please. Try to do it. I give you some time
And I
to branch the other one. So, family of John. I didn't want to use
can I do it?
the. Normally we say the family, but I don't want to use the because I don't want to confuse you. Okay. Yes, please. Okay, who can do it?
Professor?
This,
Sir?
Umayma, yes. Then I give the floor to the others.
We
Okay.
have first, we have N double bar.
Okay, so in
And
double
then-
bar means NP. In one
And
bar.
then we have N one bar. And then N zero bar, sister to
So 0 bar here. This is 0 bar. Okay. So family. And here, what do we have here? Preposition phrase.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, yeah, so fine. So here, this preposition is a complement, of family, because it is sister to N0 bar dominated by N1 bar. Fine. Now continue with family of John. Family of John. So here, what should we have here again? Continue, please. Yes, Umayba?
P bar.
Okay, so remember, from the phrase you always have P bar. Then
Professor, we have
NP. Oh.
P and then NP here.
NP.
Okay. So this of okay, N bar and John. Okay.
John.
So this is family of John. So here of John, the first PP functions as complement of family because it is sister to N0 bar and dominated by 1 bar. And the NP is complement of the preposition of. So it is sister to P0 bar dominated by P1 bar. Okay, the third example. What is it, please? Professor?
The school.
School. Professor?
The school.
Please raise your hands, Miss Fatiha.
Yes, Professor. We have an NP.
Okay, what is it, please? What
The
is
school.
The school. The school. Okay. So we have the NP. We have the NP.
N bar.
Determiner D.
N bar.
No, with the determiner and then in bar, because we have the determiner here.
Determiner.
Yes, and then in bar we have N.
School. Okay. Now something new here that you should remember. Don't you notice that only the determiner, which is branched from the phrase. So please remember this. Since we have an example here at the school, remember that only the determiner which is branched from the phrase. Okay, here we have the NP. Okay, so the NP, it is only the determiner which we can branch from the phrase. Okay, only the determiner. Okay, look at this tree here. PP is branched from 1 bar. PP is branched from 1 bar, etc. You can take any example. Only the determiner which is branched from. Look at family of John. Family of John. Nothing is branched. No category is branched from the phrase. So here from the N double bar or NP, we move to N bar. From the PP, we move to P bar. We cannot branch anything else. From the NP, we must branch only in double bar, in one bar. Okay, nothing else. Determiner. If we have determiner, suppose that we have family of the John. Just imagine. Then we are going to branch it here. Okay, so nothing is branched from this except the determiner and one bar. If we have, for example, in the determiner, if we have P, because the preposition preceded by determiner, so you can never have something branch from the preposition. This is the rule of specifier that we'll talk about next time. But for the time being, just remember that only determiners which are branched from the phrase in addition to that X bar. Yes, please. What is the other example, please?
Professor?
Yes, Mr. Omar?
The very old man from Morocco.
The very old man from Morocco.
Yes. Can I answer?
Okay. Yes. The very old man from Morocco. Sorry. Just to write it. The very old man from Morocco. Okay. Now, the first thing that some of you might do is, how many adjuncts do we have and how many complements do we have? Let's talk about it. The very old man from Morocco. Yes, please?
So we branch in P.
Now, how many adjuncts do we have here? For example, we know
We have two.
that this is an adjunct, very old man, and from Morocco is an adjunct. And very is an adjunct to old. So pay attention. Okay, so here the NP, yes, Mr. Omar. We first branched the NP, sorry. Yeah, first the NP. What else?
The N bar.
N bar.
Determiner.
Determiner here, always, okay? So determiner there. Then
in bar.
Another in bar,
Yes. Adjective phrase.
From this one or this one? From the top
one? The N bar.
This one?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, yes. From this one, fine. So here we have the adjective phrase. So remember something very interesting here, that the adverb has nothing to do with the noun. It is related to the adjective. So it must be branched with the adjective old. And the head is the adjective, okay? So fine, let's stop here first and check. So very old, the adjective phrase, what is its function? It's an adjunct. So it is sister to N bar dominated by N bar. That's fine, okay? You have to check the rules. Okay, now, okay, move on then.
Adjective.
Then we have
Adjective bar.
The adjective.
Adjective bar.
Just the adjective?
The adjective bar. Because I can't see it clear. I can't see it.
Okay, and from this adjective we can branch what?
Adverb. Adverb bar.
Are you sure from this one?
No, adverb phrase.
Adverb phrase bar.
No, adverb phrase.
You can never branch. Okay, I have just said it. Only determiners are branched from the phrase. Okay, which means that very, so very is an adverb phrase. You see?
Yes, I said, Professor, adjective bar.
Okay.
Then adverb very. And from the adjective phrase, the adjective and all, if it's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So here, please pay attention. First, look at the adjective phrase one. Look at. Okay. If we were in the class, it would be much better than. Anyhow, so look at this one. This adjective phrase. This one. Okay. So it is sister to in bar, dominated by in bar. That's fine. The adjective phrase, very old, is an adjunct. It's correct. Now remember, from the phrase we can branch one bar. Obligatory. This is obligatory. Okay. We can branch next to one bar only determiners. This is the case when we have nouns. Okay. So we don't need this one. We don't need this one. Okay. Then the adverb phrase, pay attention. Always think of the function. Always think of the function. So the adverb phrase, its function is an adjunct again, because it does not complete the meaning of the adjective. So it must be sister to adjective one bar, dominated by adjective one bar. Please remember these rules. You will have it in the exam. You will have, of course, an adjective and an adverb and a noun. So remember, this is always the case. This is always the rule of the adverb phrase. The adverb phrase is all when it occurs with an adjective. It is always, please remember, it is always next to an adjective one bar and dominated by an adjective one bar. And the adjective phrase is always next to an N bar and dominated by an N bar. Is it clear?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, sir.
So let's continue now. Man from Morocco.
The N bar.
Okay. So here we have N bar. So what else? What should we do again?
N bar.
Now? N bar or just now?
Just a noun.
No, N bar.
Only the noun.
So if we write just now, it's a mistake, because
yes, we have N bar. We still have man from Morocco.
Yeah. This preposition phrase from Morocco is not a compliment. Okay, very old man from Morocco. From Morocco is not a compliment. It's only an adjunct. So it must be sister to one bar and dominated by one bar. Okay, it must be sister to one bar dominated by then noun, which is man. Okay. Now we move to from Morocco.
P-bar.
Remember, okay, from the phrase we always branch P bar. Then from and Morocco. What is the? Remember what I said. What does the preposition phrase take as its complement?
The NP.
Noun phrase.
So the NP is always a complement. The NP is always complement of the preposition phrase, which means must be sister to by P1 bar. So here we have from, okay, and then we have one bar. You always move from the phrase to one bar to 0 bar, which is Morocco. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is the other phrase, please?
Very friendly.
Yeah, very friendly. Who can do it? Sumaya? Yes?
Yes, Professor?
Very friendly. So what is the, how can we branch it?
Adverb phrase?
Is it an adverb phrase?
Adjective, adjective.
Adjective phrase. Now, remember, this is something that you must know before doing these syntactic branches. How, if you are confused whether a word is an adjective or an adverb, so you should use it with a noun. Friendly man, yes. Why? So friendly is an adjective. Why? Because adjectives are used with nouns, they modify nouns, and adverbs do not modify nouns. So whenever you are confused, for example, is tough a noun or an adverb, use it with a noun. Can we say a tough task? Yes. So it is an adjective. Okay, so whenever you are confused, use it with a noun. If it's okay, if it's correct, then it's an adjective. Okay, yes. So very friendly is
adjective phrase.
Adjective phrase. So what?
Adjective bar.
Okay, adjective bar.
Then adjective.
Then adjective.
Very.
Then
very.
Very is not an adverb. Very is an adverb. So very is an adverb modifying an adjective which is friendly.
Yes, sorry.
So
adverb phrase, no?
Adverb phrase from which branch? From the adjective from here?
Adjective bar, yes.
Okay, here adverb phrase. Adverb, one bar. Adverb,
very.
there. And should we, what else?
That's it, I guess.
Okay, let me ask the others. Is it correct? What is the mistake here?
Adjective should be adjective bar.
Yes, thank you. The adverb phrase is an adjunct. It must be sister to one bar here. Okay, then adjective, then friendly. Okay, I'm sure that some of you will make this mistake in the exam, but you'll. Okay, so pay attention, please. The adverb. I have just said it. Look at this one. Okay, this is all. Let me okay, highlight it. This is always the rule of the adverb phrase when it precedes an adjective. Okay, so it must precede. It must be sister to an adjective bar dominated by an adjective bar. Okay, and again here. Okay, it's the same thing here. Yes.
Adjunct and complement.
Okay, look at for example, look at this one. Okay, let me just yes, look at this one. Look at the INPI Morocco. Okay,
yes.
Look at the INPI Morocco. This is the complement. Okay. Okay, this look at the INPI Morocco. So it is sister to 0 bar. There is no P bar there. Morocco.
Yes.
Yeah, Morocco here. The INPI is sister to 0 bar. P0 bar. Now this means the complement must be sister bar dominated by 1 bar, but the adjunct must be sister to 1 bar dominated by 1 bar. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. What is the other sentence, please? The other phrase, please?
Very slowly.
Very slowly again. Very slowly.
Yes, sir.
Yes?
And maybe she was asking about their function in the sentence.
Which
one? The adjunct, the girl we just asked. Maybe she was asking about the function of the adjunct and the complement.
So she did not know the difference between adjunct and complement.
It's optional and the.
It is optional, and in syntax, in the tree we show this by placing it next to bar and 1 bar. This is how we know that this is an adjunct. And of course, you must remember the rules. Okay, I'm going to repeat them again. So I said the preposition always takes the NP as its complement, which means that the NP is always sister to P0 bar dominated by P1 bar. Okay? The adjective is always an adjunct to the NP. So you can never find the adjective phrase sister to N0 bar because the adjective is always a modifier. Okay? So the adjective phrase is always next to N bar dominated by N bar. Okay? And the adverb phrase can never be a complement to the adjective. So the adverb phrase is always sister to adjective bar dominated by an adjective bar. The verb always takes the adverb as an adjunct. So the adverb phrase, when we are talking, is always sister to V bar and dominated by V bar. But the NP, we're talking about transitive verbs. The NP is the complement of the verb. So the NP must be sister to V0 bar dominated by V1 bar. If you don't know these rules, so you will find it difficult to distinguish between an adjunct and the root. This is something that you should have, and I think you did, but just some of you forgot the rules. Okay, please, very slowly. Sorry. Yes, who can do it, please?
Professor, shall I try?
Okay. Yes, very slowly.
So first thing we have adjective phrase.
Adjective phrase, yes.
Adjective bar.
Adjective bar.
Then
Yes.
we have another adjective bar.
Another adjective bar, yes.
Then we have adverb phrase.
From which node? From this node?
No,
From this one? The
no.
first one. Okay.
Yes. Adverb phrase.
Adverb phrase.
Adverb var. And
adverb. Which is
very.
And then here we have the adjective plural. Yes, it's correct. Okay. Yes. So remember, the adverb phrase is always sister to adjective bar dominated by adjective bar.
Professor?
Professor,
Yes.
it's the adverb.
It's the adverb phrase. It's not an adjective phrase.
Yes.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes, Professor.
Both of them are adverb phrases. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yes. So here we have adverb phrase, adverb 1 bar, adverb 1 bar, adverb. Okay. So here an adverb phrase modifying another adverb. Okay. Now remember that the adverb phrase is an adjunct to another adverb phrase, another adverb, as in very slowly. So here adverb phrase is an adjunct. So the adverb phrase is always an adjunct. The adverb can never be a complement. It can be an adjunct to another adverb. And this is the case here. It can be an adjunct with an adjective, for example, very friendly, and it can be an adjunct when we're with verbs. With verbs, for example, I met him. Adjunct. So it is sister to V bar, dominated by V bar. Is this the last example?
No, there's still
No,
another
Professor,
one.
this is the last one in the school.
In the school. Who can do it? Yes, please. So who can do it? Who can do in the school?
Professor?
Can I, Professor?
Yes, Mr. Ismail, in the school. Yes?
Yes, we have the preposition phrase.
Preposition phrase.
P bar.
P bar.
Preposition P.
Yes, preposition.
And we have the NP from
From
the
which
P bar.
node? From the
P bar.
And
We have the determiner.
We have determiner and
the in bar.
okay.
The n noun.
Noun.
So that's it.
Okay, so in
the school.
Yes, it's correct now. So again, here the NP, and this is what is interesting. The NP here, this one is a complement, okay, of the preposition. Is it the last example?
Yes, Professor, it is.
So I give you a sentence now, then we can stop, okay? So write it down, please. Write it down. Okay. So the very old book of poems, the very old book, or let's say the very short boy from Japan, the very short boy from Japan. Write down the sentence, please. The very short boy from Japan. Okay. The very short boy from Japan wrote, okay, a very nice paper. A very nice paper. A very nice paper. Yesterday. Yesterday, and we may add another adjunct. In the morning. Oh, yesterday in the morning, okay? Yesterday in the morning. So a very short boy from Japan wrote a nice paper yesterday in the morning. Fine. So we have a number of adjuncts. Now let's draw the tree, then we call it a day. Okay? So let me have a blank square to correct it. Think of it for a moment. Okay? Think of it for a moment.
Professor, a very nice paper.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do it together. So first, this is a sentence. Okay, so we have to start with TP. Okay, we have to start with TP. Okay, so we have to start with TP because this is a sentence. TP, we have the subject, which is a very short boy from Japan. This is the subject, and this is an NP, right? And we have the verb phrase, wrote a very yesterday in the morning. Fine. Now, what do we have in the NP? So remember, from the phrase, we branch first the in bar. Then?
And determiner.
Okay, then determiner here. Determiner, which is or the. Okay, what else? We have a very short boy. So what do we need here? We know that the adverb goes with the adjective. So We have the adjective phrase, very short. Okay, we have the adjective phrase, which is short, very short. So the adjective phrase, what does it function? What does it function? It's an adjunct, so it must be sister. It must be sister to one bar,
We need an
dominated
N
by
bar.
one bar. Yes.
N bar.
Okay, here. From the phrase we branch one bar. Okay, one bar. What about the adverb? What about the adverb phrase vary? It is again an adjunct, so it must be sister to one bar, dominated by one bar. Okay, so it must be like this. Adverb phrase, so it must be sister to adjective bar, dominated by an adjective bar. Okay, and you continue here. Okay, so here again, adverb one bar. Okay, adverb, which is vary. And here, adjective 0 bar. And then we have short. Fine. So notice that vary is an adjunct to short because it's sister to adjective bar, dominated by an adjective bar. And the whole adjective phrase, very short, is only an adjunct to the noun because it is sister to n bar, dominated by an n bar. Now we go to the head, boy, and the preposition phrase from Japan. So from Japan, is it a complement or an adjunct?
Complement.
Adjunct. So for the time being, so just remember that only of, preposition of, is complement. All other prepositions are adjuncts for the time being, okay?
Professor?
So since it is an adjunct, so it must be what? It must be sister to n bar, dominated by an n bar. So please remember, not from this tree one, because in X-bar theory you cannot have more than 2 branches except with conjunctions. Okay?
Yeah, from second n bar.
So from the second one, okay? Yes. So like this, n bar, and here preposition phrase. Okay? Preposition phrase. So here we have boy. Here we have boy. Okay, so the preposition phrase is sister to n bar, dominated by n bar, which means it is an adjunct, not a complement. Okay, can you continue, please? Now from Japan. Yes, please.
Preposition phrase from
bar, and preposition. Okay, and the NP. Because the preposition, okay, the preposition always takes the NP as its complement. So it must be sister to 0 bar, dominated by 1 bar. Okay. So here
n bar and n.
And Japan. Here from. Okay, now we have finished this subject. A very short boy from Japan. So very short is an adjunct to the noun boy, and very itself is an adjunct to the adjective short. The preposition phrase from Japan is only an adjunct to the noun boy, and Japan, the NP, is a complement of the preposition. Well, you must know the rules that I explained. We move to the VP. Okay. Yes, please. So what do we have in the VP?
Have the V bar.
A V bar.
So we have V bar. Then
another V bar.
So if you want to make it simple, so you know that the verb is the head. So you can do it in this way. This is the head. The verb is, let's say, wrote. This is the head, V. The head is lexical, so V. Then what do we have after the verb? We have a very nice paper yesterday in the morning. A very nice paper. So we have the complement, because right is monotone complement. So a very nice paper. The NP is the complement. Remember the rules. I said before that the verb, if it is transitive, it takes the NP as its complement. It cannot take yesterday. It cannot take an adjunct or the adverb phrases as complements. So automatically you must branch the NP because it's the complement. Okay. So here. So fine. So here, as I said, the verb takes, okay, takes the NP as its complement. So what is the rule of the complement? It must be sister to 0 bar and dominated by 1 bar. Okay. So it must be sister to, it must be dominated bar, okay, 0 bar. Okay, so here we have the NP. The NP, a very nice paper. Okay, let's finish this NP. A very nice paper. Again, remember we have the term is
In bar.
L, and we have in bar. From the in bar we have the adjective phrase. We don't have more space, so we write just very nice, but it should be similar to very short. Okay. So okay, so we are going to.
We still have in the morning, Professor.
Yes, yes. I'm just going to ignore the branches of the NP because you already know how to branch it. Okay, because we don't have more space here. Okay, so the NP, which is a very nice paper. We can do it independently. Then we have the adjunct yesterday. We add another V here. Okay, so yesterday is an adjunct, so it is sister to 1 bar dominated by 1 bar. Very simple. Okay, the adverb phrase, which is yesterday. Okay, and we have another adjunct, which is the preposition phrase. So it is again sister to, okay, 1 bar, okay, sister to, okay, this one. You see? So it is sister, the preposition phrase in the morning, okay, in the morning. So again, in the morning is sister to V bar. So we don't need this V. We don't need this one. Okay. Don't need it. So okay, so here the verb write takes its complement a very nice paper. So a very nice paper, the NP is sister to V0 bar dominated by V1 bar because it's the complement of the verb. So remember, the complement must be sister to 0 bar dominated by 1 bar. And all other adjuncts, by the way, adjuncts are adverb phrases, preposition phrases, adjectives, etc. So the adverb phrase yesterday is an adjunct. So it must be sister to X bar dominated by X bar. So we can find it here. As you can see, it is sister to V bar dominated by V bar. The preposition phrase in the morning, okay, is also an adjunct because the verb write is monotransitive. It requires only one complement, which is the noun. phrase, a very nice paper. Okay, so the preposition phrase in the morning is an adjunct, is sister to V bar, dominated by V bar. Is it clear? Is there any question? And I think that you know how to branch a very nice paper and in the morning. If you want, we can do it. Okay, separately, we can do it separately. Okay, let's do it and go back to the phrase again, the sentence. Okay, so we a very nice paper, very easy. So we have the NP, so we have determiner and we have noun. Very nice. Remember the adjective phrase, okay, which is very nice, is only an adjunct, so it must be sister to N bar, dominated by N bar. From the phrase, we always branch one bar. Then from one bar, you can branch the adverb phrase, which is very. And here, you must branch adjective one bar, not adjective 0 bar, because the adverb phrase very is an adjunct. Then the adjective 0 bar, then nice. Okay, and here again, noun, nice paper. So again here, this is obligatory because the adjective phrase is simply an adjunct to the noun. And again, this is obligatory because the adverb phrase is simply an adjunct to the adjective. Okay, to the adjective. So the adjective phrase is simply an adjunct to the noun, and the adverb phrase is simply an adjunct to the adjective. So finally, remember these rules, please. So the adjunct is here, okay, or before, okay, it could be after or before, and the complement is here, okay. So the complement is always sister to X without any bar, X0 bar, and the adjunct is always sister to 1 bar, dominated by 1 bar. Is it clear? Is there any question?
It's clear, Professor.
It's clear, Professor. Thank you.
It's clear, Professor. Thank you.
Okay, so we stop here if there is no question. Okay, we stop here and see you next week. Okay, so see you next week. We are the same time, not the usual time. Okay, so those who study on Tuesday will have class on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and those who study on Wednesday will have a class on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. So Tuesday and Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Any question? Yes, I will send you, by the way, I will send you some phrases and sentences today, or okay, to draw the trees using X-bar theory.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. So see you.